RJ 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over.
Negative. We don't want to report.
Look, it wasn't my worst Wednesday night.
Hello and welcome to Anomaly-NOW, straight out of Austin, Texas. I'm your host, Smiles Lewis. This is the weekly, but not for the last 3.5 weeks, news and media roundup show for the 501c3 Scientific Anomaly Institute, aka the Anomaly Archives, located here in Austin, Texas. We are dedicated to the preservation of all things anomalous, whether it be public, popular literature, or academic press publications, or research papers, or encounter witness testimony, the whole gamut. Well, it's been a while. Yes, it is Wednesday. No, it's not. It's Friday. It is Friday, July 10th, 2026. And I'm going to try to jump right in here. Last week, we had a wonderful special presentation by our good friend David Metcalf, presenting on strange accidents, anomalies at the edge of perception. This was a special free to everyone, not just our Anomaly Archives patrons, but to the wider world at large. And thank you so much, David, for that presentation. As always, fascinating, interesting, amazing information from various perspectives that you might not always think of when you think about your interest in UFOs, flying saucers, UAP, and unidentified anomalous phenomena, what have you. And coming up for our Anomaly Academy lecture series is the presentation coming up at the end of this month. That'll be Wednesday, July 29th at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Barbara Fisher, the host of the 6 Degrees of John Keel podcast, will be presenting Living with Living Lights. Really looking forward to this. She is an experiencer, an artist, an editor, and writer, and as I mentioned, a host of the 6 Degrees of John Keel podcast. She's also worked very closely with Joshua Cutchin, and is going to be talking about her lifelong experiencing of strange phenomena. Yes, Living with Living Lights, presented by Barbara Fisher. Check that out. And you can find out more about that by going to the show notes for tonight's episode. That'll be at anomalyarchives.org, and just search for the Anomaly-NOW video directory, where we have show notes for every episode, every show. Well, going on today is the completely free, online only presentation sent from the Center for the Impossible. That's, of course, the Archives of the Impossible. It's actually being coordinated, it appears, by the John E. Mack Institute. So if you go over to johnemackinstitute.org/summer-symposium-2026, you'll find this information on Breaking the Taboo, a case for reviving serious academic research into UAP-related contact and experiencer phenomena. This has been phenomenal so far. Of course, I'm missing part of it right now by recording this, but they are recording it, and hopefully everything, fingers crossed, that their recording works out properly. As has been witnessed recently, you just never know how things are going to turn out with audio and video technologies. Of course, I'm referring to the recent Disclosure Foundation event at the Capitol. And it was plagued by audio difficulties, but still pretty good video, and hopefully they'll get that better version reposted. But yes, today is this Breaking the Taboo event being put on by John E. Mack Institute and Archives of the Impossible, Center for the Impossible. Karen Austin is heading it, and man, everything I've heard so far today has been great. I listened to about 3 or 4 hours worth of lectures. Most of them were pretty short and contained, which I thought in some ways doesn't allow the depth. But as they said repeatedly throughout this is meant as the launching point for more frequent events like this that can be longer and can go into more depth. But even with the short presentations, the level of depth and informed commentary is amazing. I really am just so excited by what all is going on. Some of the most important things I found were hearing from Andrea Odo, the founder of the Anomalous Coalition on Reddit, and Charles Holt, co-founder of the Experiencers subreddit. And they were talking about helping experiencers through ontological shock with community, peer support, and compassionate care. They've got some pretty grandiose aims, plans, goals for the future, and it sounds amazing what they're going to be doing. Of course, presentations by Carr and Austin, experiencer to researcher, examining the evidence for contact. They have made dramatic progress on the digitization and transcription of the Strieber communion letters and the Johnny Mack papers that were donated to the Rice University Archives of the Impossible. If you have not gone back to the Archives of the Impossible conference where they went into great depth about that project, and this was just a couple of years ago, it was one of those things where you're like, yes, they're talking about using AI in the best possible way and using, you know, these new tools to analyze the data, but also to protect the privacy and identity of the witnesses, experiencers whose data this is. It's a Herculean effort, and it sounds like they have made great progress. I'm so excited. There was also a slightly slower presentation, but still the subject matter is interesting, from parapsychologist Dawa Bozga, the alien abduction experience, preliminary results of a scoping review. Basically, he was just giving an overview of their attempts at finding English language academic peer review research into the alien abduction phenomena and the data and the demographics. And unsurprisingly to any of us who've been at this a long time, and Dawa Bozga has been at this a long time. He actually was a contemporary, or at least worked alongside J. Allen Hynek at the Center for UFO Studies. But yeah, there's still a long way to go. But Beth H. Glick, doctoral researcher at California Institute of Human Sciences, presented Transformed into What? Measuring Identity and Action After Exceptional Experience. And I was so excited to hear her use the phrase exceptional human experience and to literally call out the grand dame of EHE's, Ray White, no longer with us, who passed on some time back, but who it was seminal to my reevaluation of the import of narrative and experience in these exceptional human experiences. Anyway, so much more happening. It's going on right now. So hopefully you're watching it, and hopefully it'll be archived and reposted online for folks to watch in recordings. Very excited about this. Congratulations on already a great online conference from the Center for the Impossible and the Johnny Mack Institute. Well, of course, the big other event was the previously alluded to Disclosure Foundation event that happened. The Disclosure Forum 2026, Humanity at the Edge of Discovery. That's like an over 7-hour, almost 8-hour recording. Of course, they did take breaks, but I haven't even had the chance to go all the way through this. I've tried going through from the beginning. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, it was plagued by audio problems. Not enough to make me not watch it, but it's a long event, and there's a lot of interesting guests that I'm very excited to hear what they had to say. And I've seen other people commenting about it, but here I wanted to just comment about, which of course this is at unknowncountry.com, Whitley Strieber's site, where he's pointing out that there was an unscripted moment at the Disclosure Forum where at the very end of it, what's the gentleman's, Matthew Brown, who is I guess experiencer, whistleblower, who is the person that brought to Jeremy Corbell and to some degree Michael Schellenberger the story of the Immaculate Constellation documents, which again skeptics tend to think was just a nothing burger, so to speak, just documents that were part of a military training exercise that utilized the lore and open source information about the UFO phenomena in the government and the military. But that's who introduced a thank you, an unscripted thank you, apparently, to Whitley Strieber at the very end. And I was going to go ahead and just play this. It's really brief. But yeah, here we go.
Long been marginalized and silenced. And I think that is starting to change culturally. But it took a lot of work to get here. And while it's before my time, I can only imagine the sort of darkness and isolation others went through dealing with those sort of extraordinary experiences in a sometimes cruel and unbelieving world. So I just want to take a moment to thank one of those people, and there are many, but one person who, gave a voice and a platform, and more than that, counsel and comfort to experiencers and abductees, and he's here today, and that's Mr. Strieber. Thank you, Whitley.
Thank you. It has been a rather long journey. I can remember the beginning of it, staring into the face of a jeering host on a television set under the bright lights alone, and then going home in the night and coming face to face with the very thing that they were laughing about. But you're not laughing, and I'm so glad you are here. Keep up the good work. We will become a cosmic species.
Thank you.
And fresh off the heels of that, in Washington, D.C., Strieber made his way back to the West Coast, Los Angeles area, where he made an appearance at Greg Bishop's curated art show, Power to the Paper, that features the artwork of many abductees, experiencers, and UFO researchers like David Metcalf, whom we mentioned was our lecturer last week on the anniversary of the birth of the modern UFO era, June 24th. And yeah, Strieber made an appearance there, and we have a brief little clip here of something he said that was recorded by, who was this gentleman? I had it here somewhere. Video was posted by James Pike, and let's see if I can bring that up here. There we go.
Well, I think it means something about us, for sure. Well, I think it means something about us, for sure. That we're going to have to bring with us into the greater world which we are heading toward, despite the demon people that you talked about. You know what that does? As soon as we deflate these into supernatural beings, we say we're helpless, and we're not helpless. So when I hear someone like J.D. Vance say that they're demons, I think to myself, he's really disempowering us. So is he a demon? Well, that's what they would want to do, isn't it? To disempower us. The Aztecs and the Inca were disempowered by the confusion that they had between what these beings that appeared out of nowhere, coming up out of the sea, were, and their God.
There you go. Go Whitley. And again, I just want to put this in the context of today's Rice Archives of the Impossible, Center for the Impossible, Johnny Mack Institute, Breaking the Taboo event, which is focused on the experiencers. And, I've been saying for the last almost 10 years since this post 2017 period has unfolded that there's been far too much focus on the militaristic interpretation, the threat assessment perspective, the military intelligence, governmental authority driven instruments, kick the tires of the physical nuts and bolts craft kind of UFO UAP research angle, to the detriment of the experiencers, the people who are talking about apparent encounters, contact with a NHI, non-human intelligence, whatever it is. It's at the heart of the UFO UAP phenomena. And we're finally seeing that shift. And we better tread very carefully. So just, as I mentioned, we just had that event. And if you didn't watch it, you can go check that out on YouTube, or it's also on our Facebook page for the Anomaly Archives. David Metcalf's presentation, Strange Accidents, Anomalies at the Edge of Perception, over at his blog. You can, which is called, it's davidmetcalf.wordpress.com. He has just been writing a lot. He's got several articles now. Roswell and the Cultural Architecture of Memory. Another one, UFOs and Demons When Fieldwork Comes to the Door, which basically talks about him partaking in something I used to do when, religious or any door-to-door solicitors would come by. I would flip the script, turn the tables on them, and be like, look, I know you have to make your quota or whatever, but if you've got the time, I'd like to ask you some questions. And so he talked to a religious person who had come to his door, spreading the faith or witnessing or whatever you say. But he's done some other articles since then as well: Flying Saucers and Spin Doctors, UFOs and the Birth of the American Mediation State, as well as, I think this is his latest one, The Myth of the Fragile Public, Why UFO Disclosure Most Likely Won't Break Society. And this is, of course, based on this recent big data poll, How Would Americans Handle Alien Disclosure, which you can go read about. Did I open that already? I don't know if I did. I don't think I did. Oh, well. But yeah, great stuff from David Metcalf that you should check out. And again, if you're not familiar with him, go check him out. He is one of the most whip smart young intellectuals in the UFO field, who's been very close with good friends, Greg Bishop, Joshua Cutchin, and Diana Pasolka. So, all right, moving right along. We've got these other follow-up articles to this recent Disclosure Forum 2026 that you can go check out. The Disclosure Forum, what it really revealed, over at YouTube. UAP Disclosure Forum in DC, key takeaways from News Nation Now. Disclosure Foundation to review NASA archives for unidentified anomalous phenomena, over at natlawreview.com. And other links. And there's so many, there's just a ton of UFO links that we're not going to really have time to get to, but I do want to share with you some other things. Yeah, so, okay, I've mentioned several times the work of Kelly Chase and her now former collaborator, experiencer, leader of an experiencer support group, J. Christopher King, who has pretty much been canceled due to allegations of inappropriate behavior from multiple women. And now Kelly is slowly speaking out about that. And of course, it's frustrating that, but understandable that she and others have removed certain past shows and videos and podcasts that featured Jay. And I get that to a point. But I do really think she's doing a good job. She's so incredibly thoughtful and considerate about how she goes about her work. And I did want to play this minute and a half clip. I highly recommend. I'd already mentioned her post from June 3rd, The Weaponized Wound, which was excellent. But this new one is called Starlight Sickness, Gaslighting, Belief Engineering, and How I Got Lost in Ufology's Hall of Mirrors. She has been so good at balancing the important nature of consciousness and at the heart of these strange, exceptional, anomalous experiences, while also giving more than just a needed nod toward the parapolitical. She has really, I think, done some very good work explicating the dangers and nature of manipulation that happens in this field, and perhaps in all fields related to the paranormal, but particularly in the UFO scene. And I would really encourage you to check out all of her work. But here is a minute and a half clip where she has most recently explicated what happened to her back in 2023 that's now coming home to roost as a result of what's happened with J. Christopher King.
Names. You don't need to give the gory details, just the truth. And the truth of my story is this. Throughout our friendship, you lied to me, exploited me, and manipulated my trust. And in the fall of 2023, I now believe that you somehow participated in an elaborate scenario in which I came to believe that I had been drugged after a conference and was subsequently being actively targeted by shadowy intelligence-connected people as a result of having seen things I shouldn't have seen. Whether you actually believed any part of that story yourself is not something that I can say for certain, at least not yet. But I know what it did to me. It made me afraid. It made me doubt my own perception. It alienated me from people who might have helped me. It put me in a box and it made my world small. It made me believe that you were the only person in the world that I could fully trust, and it created a near bottomless well of empathy in me for what I believed you had been through in that hotel room. As a result of that situation, and only because of that situation, I was willing to put up with things and overlook things and forgive things that I never would have allowed even once from anyone else under any other circumstances. I felt unsafe every minute of every day, even in my own home. But I don't have to tell you that. You had a front row seat to all of the ways that I was privately unraveling.
And there's so much more. But that's about the most detail that she gives. I'm sure there's a lot of people in the community who know more about the story. I don't. But I really feel for Kelly and anybody who was victimized in this way by Jay or anybody. I think this is yet another important warning cry to everybody in the field to be on guard. And I don't mean to make this a scene, a community filled with paranoia. It already is. But what beyond even just shadowy military intelligence complex machinations, there are also just sick individuals who will mess with you for their own twisted reasons. And we may never know as much as it. And she says as much. She is going to continue to try to process this for herself and try to be honest with the community, as she says in this same. You can actually read her article. She is reading this material, and I think she does a great job. And again, can't recommend it enough. Now, a few more bummers here. Sorry. It was just this week in the last few days that the Dana and Greg Newkirk of the Occult Paranormal Museum, they during one of their fireside chats Greg Newkirk had a rant that he wanted to go off about, which I was very excited to hear because I love hearing people go off on rants. But what he informed me of is so much a problem of our time, and not to make this is not trying to politicize the issue at the heart of this, but just to bring people's attention to what is happening. And this is just one example. And I am talking about the problem of data centers. And in this case, it's a data center being built on part of the massive site known as the TNT area outside of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where, of course, the legendary, famous Mothman, UFO, paranormal flap, cryptid flap, whatever, however you want to consider it, occurred. And for those that don't know, the TNT area is outside of town. It was this massive munitions factory and storage facility during the wars, past world wars, where there were these giant concrete igloo dome structures where all the munitions, nitroglycerin, and dynamite and other weapons of mass destruction, or just weapons, were I believe manufactured and stored. And the site is considered a Superfund site and is not habitable by humans or usable for agriculture. Well, apparently, as is so often the case now with these giant data centers, some deal seems to have been struck, and a massive data center that I believe is called Monarch is being started on one portion of this massive Superfund site where the TNT area is. And it's a beautiful area. I mean, it is highly polluted. These ponds are to retain the materials, the runoff, and keep it from going into the river and polluting more than it already has. The area is ultra polluted, but it has been a mecca for UFO and paranormal enthusiasts interested in experiencing what's left of the area where some of the very first Mothman encounters happened. And so this is really a situation where I don't know the extent of how this is going to affect access, but that's the big question. And also just with all the issues surrounding data centers, including noise pollution, let alone the energy consumption, water usage. But here you can see shots of where they're showing where they've started doing they've clear cut the trees and they've hauled out the trees. And he was describing how this gentleman that's being shown, Bowman TV, the YouTube channel where I found the most information about this. He was saying that the dust being put into the air and all over the community is already causing health issues with the community. The community's up in arms about this. And something that he doesn't actually show in that video, but there's another video on that channel that goes into this. And that is that. So that clear cutting, that changing of the landscape has caused massive flooding where there was never any more. There's an hour-long video. Here we see West Virginia neighborhood floods from new data center, Mason County, West Virginia. I feel for these people. This is something that we're all going to have to contend with. And it's because of our overuse and overexpansion of these data centers. I have very strong feelings about this, and I'm not going to, you can probably guess what they are, but I just thought I'd bring that to your attention. You should go watch that video and the other videos on that gentleman's channel if this interests you. And as Greg and Dana Newkirk were saying, if you can and have wanted to go see the TNT area, this may be your last chance. before it either is wiped off the map or more likely made inaccessible due to new rules regarding access to the data centers and the area surrounding them, which is the TNT area. All right. Meanwhile, over at not Brent Rains, Brian Sentes Skunkworks blog, we find out that a very interesting UFO persona, Rich Reynolds, has apparently passed. And Brian Sentes wrote this requiem or in memoriam that says, Gadfly ufologist Rich Reynolds passed away. I'll be the first to say Reynolds was a difficult character. I can't remember a single thing we agreed on, and I'm uncertain he ever got where I was coming from. Nevertheless, he and his circle were one of the first I engaged with online in early 2018 when I launched Skunkworks, and maybe even earlier. And Skunkworks readers will know of various posts and series of posts inspired by our interactions. These interactions were often at frustratingly maddening cross purposes, but the irritant of Reynolds' interventions pushed me to articulate my positions in ever greater and deeper detail, if not clarity. For that, in retrospect, I am grateful. As well, had I not been part of a mailing list he added me to this past year or so, I would not have been given the opportunity to write for Fate magazine, wherein is forthcoming a review of the last volume of the Journals of Jacques Vallée. One topic Rich and I disagreed on was reality. Reynolds insisting on some real reality underwriting and giving sense to the, quote, blooming, buzzing confusion of the experience of our mortal lives. He maintained, or so I took it, the truth of the UFO would give access to this real reality, the truth and meaning of life. When asked about an afterlife, I, lapsed Catholic that I am apt to tactfully reply that we can know no more about it than the fetus can know about life ex utero in that spirit. In that spirit, I trust Rich has now been born into a reality, if not his real reality, one other than and curiouser than this one. Well, thank you, Brian, for making me and everyone aware of Rich's passing. I have been unable to find. He used to have a Blogspot blog or a WordPress blog called UFO Conjectures. He had a new top level domain name, and I just, for the life of me, I have not been able to find it. So if anybody listening, send me an email at contact@anomalyarchives.org or the other email on the anomalyarchives.org website with the link to that. I know I've been to it in the past year or two, but yeah, I just can't seem to find it. And I asked a friend who I thought would know, and they didn't have any idea either. Rich Reynolds was somebody who, again, I vehemently disagreed with him a lot. I didn't really engage with him, but most of the things he wrote really irritated me, and I found counterproductive or counterintuitive to my perspective. But as with Brian's comments, I found as is so often the case with skeptics, though I really wouldn't, he was a skeptic on some things, but really he was a UFO believer to a degree, as aren't we all. But yeah, he challenged me and gave me new ideas to think about, and often put me on the track of things that I was unaware of previously. And that to me is as important as getting along and agreeing with people. I think it's good to get along even when you don't. It's the whole agree to disagree thing, and civility being paramount. But safe voyage, Mr. Reynolds. Meanwhile, our friend Chris Jordan, his Curious Realm show was on site at Roswell for this year's annual UFO conferences. There are always multiple conferences going on in Roswell. The only time I've been there was in 2017. Well, the only time I was there for any length of time was 2017. And I got to go to at least like 4 different conferences. It was so fantastic. It was like being in UFO heaven. And so I met so many wonderful people there. Jack Brewer. Oh gosh, there's so many others. But anyway, Well, for the time being, Chris Jordan has posted all of his interviews that he did at this year's Roswell UFO Festival 2026, including interviews with Kathleen Martin, Keith Sellen, Don Schmidt, Kevin Randall, Tom Reed, Maria Tellier, Frank Himbler, Mark D'Antonio, and Dennis Balsayer. And these are all available in a playlist that he has created that we posted a link to, and you may want to check out. Moving right along and getting back to the issue of the intelligence communities and the dangers inherent in the UFO field. My good friend David sent me a link to this article by somebody going by the name Promethean Flame. I have no idea who this is. Or is this? No. I think I was going to say, is this Matthew Brown? I think Matthew Brown has a very similar, strangely named blog. This is at substack.com. I guess the URL is theprometheanflame.substack.com. And the article is UFO Disclosure and the End of the World. The blueprint for a new age is being drawn up, but will it be better than the one that preceded it? And this was published on last week, the anniversary, June 24th, 2026. And the thing that I wanted to highlight here is the section where it goes on about the sovereign individual with an interest in UFOs. And if anybody hearing this recognizes the phrase or the title sovereign individual, you probably know more than a lot of other folks who don't. And there's an image here of a building with the logo and name Palantir on it, former headquarters of data analytics software company Palantir Technologies Incorporated in Denver, Colorado. And here is what this part of the article states. In veteran ufologist Jacques Vallée's latest installment of his published journals titled Forbidden Science, he described a conversation with fellow UFOland personality Gary Nolan, an immunologist who holds a chair at Stanford University School of Medicine. Like Vallée, Nolan is well connected in Silicon Valley and tech circles in general. In 2021, Nolan related to Vallée that elements within the U.S. government, specifically the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, were interested in sponsoring a tax-exempt nonprofit organization to, quote, study the technical aspects, unquote, of the UFO issue. According to Nolan and Vallée, one of the individuals ready to bankroll this project was none other than Peter Thiel, co-founder of data analytics company Palantir Technologies Incorporated, which is now sufficiently embedded within not only the national security apparatus of the United States, but many European nations as well. Thiel's long-rumored covert interest in the UFO subject seems to finally be confirmed. Ideologically speaking, Peter Thiel is a disciple of a deranged gospel preached by self-proclaimed libertarian thinkers such as British journalist William Rees-Mogg, M-O-G-G, and American financial advisor James Dale Davidson, who wrote the book, The Sovereign Individual, in which they declared what they called a quote-unquote cognitive elite, unquote, should break away from the laws and limitations of democratic society in order to further their goals via forming new societies which can be run like technocratic states. Thiel has famously said that he no longer believes that freedom and democracy are compatible and is seemingly doing everything in his power to make the Rees-Mogg-Davidson dream a reality. According to Jacques Vallée's relevant journal entries, the other individuals who were poised to be involved in the Thiel-backed UFO project, besides the aforementioned Gary Nolan, were theoretical physicist Avi Loeb, who has garnered fame and controversy for suggesting the interstellar comet 33I Atlas may have been an object under intelligent ET control, as well as the even more controversial figure Luis Elizondo, who helped kick off the 2017 UFO push and who has a background in counterintelligence with the U.S. Army. This illustrates that although Elizondo has had perhaps more public gaffes than any current UFO talking head, he is likely still involved in covert shenanigans vis-a-vis the subject, as does his integral involvement in the 2025 documentary film The Age of Disclosure, which was directed by longtime friend and UFO buff Dan Farah. Or Farah, Dan, whatever you pronounce it. Given Peter Thiel's willingness to fund such a project, as well as his associations with other big names in the current UFO space, which I will touch on shortly, perhaps the most important question to ask is, what sort of return on investment does he hope to get from these activities? Well, yeah, you can go on and read the rest of this. Thank you, David, for sending this to me. This is the kind of stuff that has concerned me ever since it's been brought to my attention. Another later section of this article is titled A Return to Superstition. And I would also point out that is one of the dangers that Jacques Vallée has been warning about in relationship to the UFO phenomena and people's unbridled belief in one myth or another about the nature of this phenomena, that he's expressed a distinct fear that that rampant belief in these mythologies, these UFO myths, these new religions could lead to a new dark age, a new age of superstition. And I think we're seeing that already. But yeah, check out that article. Thanks again to my friend David. This is over at Promethean Flame, UFO Disclosure and the End of the World. And then a flashback provided by the Institute of Hispanic Ufology, organized by Scott Corrales. Back in May, he posted this Manuel Carvalho, I can't pronounce that, sorry. Carballal. That's Carvalho. Manuel wrote an article back in 1996, I believe. I think that's when this is dated. Maybe I'm mistaken. But I believe Scott Corrales has been posting a lot of old stuff from back in the day. Oh, yeah, okay. Copyright 1997-98, Mundo Misterioso. But this is an interesting long article called The UFO Phenomenon is Manipulated by the Intelligence Agencies. And while I haven't had the chance to digest it, I just bring it up as an example of, yes, 30 plus years ago, and all along, there has been this sense and belief and knowledge of gnosis that we are being manipulated, that the UFO phenomena and our beliefs in it are being manipulated by different human agencies for different reasons that likely have nothing at all whatsoever to do with extraterrestrials. Okay, where am I? I've still got so much more to go. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through all this. There's just a ton of stuff, of course. And of course, the mentioning of Avi Loeb is kind of interesting, considering he's just been made the head of the current administration's new UFO panel or something. I forget the name of them, but yeah, all kinds of issues with that. And, two Soul Foundation members, Gary Nolan and Peter Scoffish. Well, there's, like I say, a lot of other interesting news links. There's some great interviews by James Falk of Neon Galactic. I highly recommend this one, Wither the Data, Daniel Elizondo on new clues to the whereabouts of OSAP data. This is basically focusing on the Capella database that Jacques Vallée made for OSAP, for Bigelow, and how that apparently was spirited away and is likely being used by others now. And then this wonderful interview discussion that I have not had the chance to finish, but I've been very much enjoying so far. Mystery Makes Meaning, Greg Bishop and Josh Cutchin on the transformational power of the UFO enigma. Again, this is over at James Falk's Neon Galactic YouTube channel. You can, of course, watch or listen on your favorite podcatcher. Oh, what else? Oh, the SCU, the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, has put out a paper, UAP Operational Presence, 1945 to 1975. You can read the paper at their website, explorescu.org. And there's been some coverage of it by, I think it's Free Score over at sentinel-news.org. Possible UAP behavioral patterns unveiled by a new study. And Garrett of Patterns Tells Stories podcast has a new article, The Intelligence Support Activity, ISA, and UFOs, which again gets into the overlap of psyop, psychological warfare, intelligence operatives, counterintelligence operations. Specifically in this case, the organization often referred to as the activity, the Intelligence Support Activity, ISA, which apparently connects to Lou Elizondo yet again. Yeah, just great stuff. And there's been several really good videos from Professor Simon Holland over at his YouTube channel that I really think are worth watching and listening to. UFO Dark Secret. I watched this, and everything he said I completely resonated with, and was like, this is important. And he pretty much espoused my very basic belief. I'm not hardcore about, but I tend to believe, as he's expressing, that there really aren't any nuts and bolts craft, that there really aren't crash retrievals in the classic way that we've been led to believe, that the true UFO phenomena really represents what we would describe as non-corporeal or super spectrum or cryptoterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial beings who can manipulate space and time and reality, but more importantly, our minds and our perceptions. And that's the truth about the UFO phenomena. He then has another video called Tic Tac Was a Lie, which of course he's been researching this idea that the Tic Tac, as Ross Coulthart and others have asserted, is known human created technology. But Professor Simon Holland's perspective on this has been informed by some aerogel experts. And in one or more of these recent videos, he's explored that yet again. And I find it a very convincing interpretation, possible explanation for the Tic Tac and certain other UFO incidences that involve quote unquote physical craft that likely are some kind of upper atmosphere suborbital surveillance platforms that can be deployed by submarines and have long loitering capabilities. That these in essence are the most advanced type of balloon or vacuum flotation levitation sensor platforms that are being encountered. I know that sounds dismissive, but I think you should give the perspective a chance. Interestingly enough, one of the videos that he did on this, called Alien Material Sample Mystery, was removed by YouTube, and he's edited out something that apparently triggered the censor function and has re-uploaded as Russian Alien Tic Tac Sample ? Banned by YouTube. I think those are all still there. You might want to go check those out. Over at Ryan Sprague's Somewhere in the Skies Classic Editions, he's uploaded an audio presentation by Nick Redfern on his Roswell conspiracy research. This is again the interpretation of the Roswell crash as not being the classic myth of crash saucers and pickled aliens and government cover-ups, but government cover-up for horrific human experimentation and working with the worst Japanese scientists post-World War II and the Nazi aviation experts from World War II, the East and West Project Paperclip scientists. What else? So much more going on. Okay. And this, okay. I cannot cover all this today. There's this article over at thedailymail.com. Drones spotted buzzing. Oh, did I? Oh, I must have closed. Oh, wait, maybe not. Drones spotted buzzing RAF bases were launched from Russian Shadow Fleet tanker sailing near UK, report reveals. This is really important because this was all kind of part of the global drone panic that we refer to as the New Jersey drone flap. But, an important part of that was these fleets of drones seen in and around military bases, both here in the United States and in the UK. And here's apparently an official report saying, oh, yes, these were launched, a la what some people were claiming over here, that there were Iranian motherships out in the ocean launching these fleets of drones and that would go inland and trigger these flaps, which has never been proven. But again, these are the kinds of technologies we are up against, and that we are, of course, as the United States, trying to win the war with. And this is where we're at. And then we have these other two more non-military use of drones with delivery drones. These two videos, I think, epitomize the issues that we're facing. This one being kind of like a flying leaf blower. Hazel Park residents complain Amazon delivery drones are too loud. And they basically describe it as, imagine if a lawnmower or a leaf blower were flying above your house every 20 minutes and driving you and your pets and your family insane. Nobody wants that. And these are those, big ones, they're basically like dual wing VTOL drones that Amazon is using, but these fly pretty low. And I think that's the main issue. They fly low and they drop the package from their belly onto the lawn. But then we have this other more close to home autonomous drone delivery company expanding into Austin, how drone operations are regulated. And this is a little interesting to me because in this case, the company is called Zipline. And from what I understand, it seems like these drones fly much higher than the Amazon drones, and they lower the cargo down from the height of the drone location via a zip line. And so in this case, it seems like they're possibly getting around some of the issues of bothering the populace with the sound of these drones by going higher. I mean, I don't know how high they'd have to be before you stop hearing them. But again, this is all a matter of FAA regulations and other laws and statutes. But it's one of those things. I'm not completely against this. I'm not completely, this is all just personal aside here, not the reflection of this organization, but me personally, I'm not a Luddite, even though I am constantly frustrated by technology, and it just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. One of my favorite commentators, Cory Doctorow, coined a phrase in edification, insert expletive there, in edification, to describe how mostly online platforms like websites and software service companies mess us over with ever worsening. Anyway, you get my point. But whether it's autonomous cars, drones, or data centers, I think there's pros and cons. We need some of this technology to a point. All right, off my soapbox. Some more great articles over in our paranormal and parapsychology section. Humans may have hidden regenerative powers. Malaysian paranormal vlogger mysteriously disappears during live ghost hunt. And another article, who are the fire tamers? Well, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm going to get to here real quickly over at vice.com. New theory explains why so many people see the same thing during a near-death experience. The majority of people describe something they don't want to come back from. This is from July 4th by Ashley Fike. But I got to say, this didn't seem that new to me. So this says a new theory published in Frontiers in Psychology in 2026 attempts to explain why some people have good experiences, why some people have bad experiences. Researcher Kais proposed what he calls the dying moment dream hypothesis, arguing that the experience is best understood as a dream state the brain generates in response to oxygen deprivation. Again, this does not sound like a new idea. This sounds like the same old idea. When the brain stops receiving input from the outside world, it turns inward, flooding consciousness with memories and emotions drawn from the person's own life. The theory's most provocative claim is that the emotional tone of the experience, peaceful or hellish, is shaped by the person's accumulated emotional history. Blame the victim, why don't you? A life defined by love and connection would, in theory, produce a very different ending than one weighted by trauma and unresolved guilt. Cultural context plays into it as well. In Christian cultures, the bright light is perceived as a being, while in Japan, it's more often reported as an inanimate object. All right, well, have to dig a little deeper into that research. Over at thedebrief.org, the unconscious brain may be more capable than scientists realized. The article by Austin Burgess begins by saying, while a patient is fully anesthetized and unresponsive, neurons in the hippocampus continue to process language, distinguish different types of words, and generate neural activity consistent with predicting upcoming words. Researchers at Baylor College of Medicine directly recorded this neural activity, offering new insight into how unconsciousness works at the cellular level. Their findings, published in Nature, show that hippocampal neurons continue to process aspects of language even when the brain is unconscious. Wow. Quote, our findings show that the brain is far more active and capable during unconsciousness than previously thought, said Dr. Samir Sheth, professor and Cullen Foundation Endowed Chair of Neurosurgery and a McNair Scholar at Bayer. Quote, even when patients are fully anesthetized, their brains continue to analyze the world around them, unquote. And there's more to this article that you can read over at thedebrief.org. And then there's these 3 articles about something that we've reported on recently, and that is a mushroom that causes you to see tiny humans, that makes you hallucinate tiny humans, fairies, maybe. So this one over at sciencealert.com, this is awkward. Mushrooms that cause quote unquote tiny human hallucinations don't contain psychedelics. If you consumed a wild mushroom and suddenly started seeing tiny people around you, you might reasonably assume it contained a familiar psychedelic. But that does not appear to be the case with Lanmao asiatica, known locally as Jianshu, a mushroom species sold in markets in Yunnan, southwestern China. When eaten undercooked, the mushroom can produce vivid visions of miniature people, not unlike Gulliver on his travels to Lilliput. Yunnan hospitals get dozens of these cases each year. To try to find out the root cause, University of Utah mycologists Colin Donmauer and Brian Dentinger sequenced the genomes of 53 mushroom samples from across the wider Lanmao genus. And despite the reported hallucinations, they found no close matches to genes associated with psilocybin or ibotenic acid, 2 well-known mushroom hallucinogens whose biosynthetic pathways were specifically examined in the study. Quote, biosynthetic gene mining of the L. asiatica genome found no close hits with any genes known in the production of mushroom psychoactive compounds. Wow. So what is it? Other side effects include dizziness, auditory hallucinations, and physical sickness have also been reported. Interesting. Well, needs more research. Let's see. The next question is how it's triggered. Wait. Very interesting. And some other articles on the same subject over at popularmechanics.com. These psychedelics spark visions of elves, gods, and rebirth, and may have changed human history forever. Some mind-altering substances can leave lasting marks on entire cultures that ripple far beyond a single trip. And then over at livescience.com, it sounds so impossible. Students studying fungus that makes users hallucinate tiny people may be on the verge of a scientific breakthrough. And this, I guess, is an interview with that doctor, but there's a paywall or you have to sign up for more information. All right. Oh, I made it through another set of tabs. Okay. On to some parapolitical stuff here. Okay, so on the missing persons, missing and murdered mythos, this is pretty interesting, and I don't know that I've seen this reported a few places, but the dailymail.com has this headline: shocking memo reveals missing UFO linked scientist was trying to escape a secret Pentagon network before vanishing. Now that's a provocative title. Of course, it's from the Daily Mail, but it appears this is legit and it makes a lot of sense. Though again, the timing is also perhaps strange given these disclosure days. It says newly released police reports from New Mexico authorities state that retired Major General William Neal McCaslin was attempting to step down from several high-level advisory positions at government-connected research laboratories across the U.S. in the lead-up to his February 27th disappearance. The new clues were released in a Freedom of Information Act requested by Sarah Bondink, a self-proclaimed historical researcher and author who has been following the McCaslin investigation, revealing previously unseen details about the case. The information documenting a March 3rd interview shows communications between the general's wife, Susan Wilkerson, and a member of the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Ghost Unit, which specializes in anti-gang and human trafficking operations. While Wilkerson had previously claimed on social media that her husband no longer possessed any top secret clearances with the U.S. government, it was revealed during the interview that he was still an active member of at least 4 different groups with deep ties to national defense secrets. In the report, Wilkerson told authorities that McCaslin was making a desperate attempt to resign from several and possibly all of these secretive projects over fears the 68-year-old was suffering from severe mental decline. All of the groups McCaslin was reportedly connected to, including Sandia National Laboratories, Riverside Research, the Kirtland Partnership, and a university-affiliated research center, are involved in high-level research for the Department of War, engaging in projects focused on national security and advanced technology. McCaslin's disappearance has been at the heart of the so-called missing scientist investigation, with the general's career appearing to overlap with several NASA scientists, nuclear lab workers, and military personnel who either died or vanished without a trace in recent years. I don't remember if it's in this. Oh, yes. And David Grush is apparently on camera here saying that McCaslin, they were trying to get McCaslin to speak. This says, despite his wife's claims of potential mental decline, government officials have revealed that McCaslin was still being looked at as a key witness in the ongoing effort to declassify decades-old secrets related to UFOs and extraterrestrials. In early May, Air Force veteran and UFO whistleblower David Grush specifically named McCaslin as one of the officers who had been in charge of classified programs related to non-human craft recovery and reverse engineering. Grush alleged that the general had not been cooperative with recent efforts by lawmakers looking to interview him over his knowledge of America's suspected contacts with extraterrestrials. The White House has tasked the FBI. Yada. Anyway, it's pretty wild. Meanwhile, I don't think I've reported this, but, as I mentioned, where was that? Back during my May 7th Anomaly-NOW rantings at about the 15-minute 42-second mark, I started talking about how I thought the 1977 Alternative 3 hoax was relevant to so much in the UFO community now, especially this missing murdered mythos that we're retreading now. And as the headline from The Guardian says, wow, it really worked. A 70s TV show that's causing worldwide panic 50 years later. And they are basically pointing out the same thing. This is actually from June 16th. And begins by saying, when UK mockumentary Alternative 3 tried to spook viewers that scientists were vanishing as part of a sinister space plot, it succeeded. Today, the resulting conspiracy theory has even seen Trump's government launch an investigation. Yeah, again, this does a good job of trying to say what I was saying, drawing the parallels there and why I think it's relevant and how the UFO scene has been affected by this for a long time, and why I recommend Weird Reads with Emily's fantastic documentary about Alternative 3 and its connection to the UFO mythos for the last 30 years or more. Moving right along. There was these recent MK Ultra hearings. I'm not going to go into any depth here, but I do obviously think it's worth talking about. This is an area that I've been focused on for a long time. MK Ultra is a vast and difficult subject to cover, just like the UFO phenomena, and it overlaps the UFO phenomena quite likely. And there's some good coverage of it from alternative media outlets. I would say check out Hidden Histories at KAYEJ substack.com. What the House hearing should have told you. MK Ultra's legacy of modern day torture. CIA's mind control programs were intimately tied to its use of coercive interrogation. Both Gitmo and CIA black site torture were impossible without MK Ultra, but that history is being buried. Completely agree. Haven't actually read this particular article, but I do like this person's analysis, and what they're reporting on is stuff that we reported on decades ago, and was brought to my attention by a person writing under a pseudonym who we've had on as an Anomaly Academy presenter. The thing I would recommend the most is this audio podcast from Recluse. That's the gentleman whose Patreon is for his The Farm podcast. So you can go to patreon.com/thefarmpodcast. Now, wait a minute. Is that? Hold on. What's the actual URL there? Is it The Farm Podcast 2? Is that capital II? I'm not sure. Well, anyway, we've got the link in the show notes. Strange Tales from the Beltway, a MAGA psyop as an MK Ultra hearing. This is an excellent bit on this. Oh, that reminds me. So Recluse, he was there at the hearing. That's him over here on the left, looking down, I guess, at his phone, taking notes. But yeah, this is a really good analysis of the proceedings. He really takes them to task and gives, I mean, he should have been one of the presenters. As sensational as the event was, as he and others have said, it was a distraction, a sideshow, not getting at anything new, not getting at the most important things that can't be said by these particular senators, representatives. Over at Tanner F. Boyle's Getting Spooked Substack, his Cystic Detective update number 14, towards the end, he has a section called What's in the News, and I would like to read what he said here. What a mess that MK Ultra hearing was, huh? If you've read the book Chaos by Tom O'Neill or Poisoner in Chief by Stephen Kinzer, you are more or less you more or less know everything that was said to the House Oversight Committee. And if you've read neither of those things, you can read the 1976 final report from the Church Committee and learn comparatively more. No new findings were presented. An inordinate amount of time was spent talking about the response to COVID-19 and Anthony Fauci. And Chairwoman Anna Paulina Luna attempted to draw a spurious link between USAID and MK Ultra to justify massive cuts to the agency. Of course, USAID is not entirely disconnected from the horrors of MK Ultra. USAID was involved in enough covert action to be considered, quote, the CIA's little sister by some observers. Getting Spooked has examined the claims of Bosko Nedeljkovic, who alleged that the agency or its precursors had a hand in faking alien abductions throughout South America during the Cold War. More famously, and not entirely distinct from operations Nedeljkovic claimed to have witnessed, was the case of Dan Mitrione, an ostensible International Cooperation Administration and USAID employee who, in reality, was training Latin American police in torture and interrogation techniques as a CIA asset. USAID and its antecedents were not the source of this policy of unethical human experimentation and enhanced interrogation, though it was often less resistant to it than it should have been. Rather, the policy appeared to come straight from the Central Intelligence Agency's KUBARK, K-U-B-A-R-K interrogation manual, which you can read online as linked to in some of these other articles. In their zeal to bring MK Ultra back to the forefront, MAGA Republicans are limited in how deep they can go. Only retreads of the sensational and true crimey can be safely discussed, far away from any substantive analysis. They need to blame the polite liberal institutions, who indeed bear some culpability in the matter, because they cannot address the obvious. MK Ultra was driven by fervent anti-communism and colonialism, meant to clamp down on insurgent movements and maintain control over populations at home and abroad. The politics that created MK Ultra are more or less identical to those that created the MAGA movement. The advent of mass incarceration and current proliferation stymied dissent meets the criteria as well, given historian Alfred W. McCoy surmising that esoteric methods of mind control like LSD testing were a red herring that distracted from the overarching goals, torture and interrogation. Of course, the 2026 hearing was all about those red herrings, seemingly offering very little to the plate in terms of research direction or potential declassification, more in favor of the esoteric true crime version of MK Ultra. New documents were promised, though very little attention seemed to be given to successor programs where the aforementioned Martin Cannon sees most intriguing possibilities in new material. Luna and company prefer the image of MK Ultra as the trendiest example of government overreach in the perpetual culture war, despite the agency's ties to big business, prominent non-governmental institutions, and other shadier aspects of American society. It goes on, and I highly recommend you read it. And he brought my attention to Martin Cannon. I guess I'd forgotten if I'd been aware of this, but Martin Cannon started a blog over on Substack, martincannon.substack.com. And in his most recent post, the first in quite some time, titled A Fortean Book, 50 Years in the Making, at the end of which he mentions, coming up, new material about MK Ultra. Martin Cannon says, presuming that the internet stays lit up, after I'm done editing my book, I plan to have a few words to say about the laughable MK Ultra congressional hearings occurring at present. So far, all I've seen are the same old stories packaged as new. Yep, it's the same trick Bondi tried to pull regarding the Epstein files. Remember when she packaged a bunch of old stuff and pretended that it was actually new stuff? That's what's going on now. Yes, I am an expert. I embarked on a serious study of MK Ultra about 6 months before Congresswoman Luna was born. Luna heads the current proceedings. MK Ultra ended in 1963, except for 7 relatively inconsequential subprojects. Few people understand that the CIA's research into the control of behavior and perception continued under the newly established Office of Research and Development, ORD. The ORD files are where you will find the real bleep if they ever get released. What the boys at ORD found made MK Ultra seem tepid. No other independent researcher has made a similar effort to learn about the post-1963 research. For all the mistakes I've made in life, I can at the very least brag that I tried to get at the unpublished story. Anyway, yeah, you can find out more there at his blog, Strange Tales. Meanwhile, over at the Austin American Statesman, John Stockwell, ex-CIA officer and tell-all author, found dead in Austin after silver alert. I didn't realize he was living here. John Stockwell, the 88-year-old former CIA officer known for writing a tell-all book about the agency, was found dead in Austin following an extensive search, according to the Travis County Sheriff's Office. Stockwell was the subject of a silver alert earlier this month after he disappeared from his East Austin neighborhood. The office issued the alert for Stockwell at about 1:30 a.m. June 13th after he was reported missing. He was last seen walking near the 3000 block of Wickham Lane on June 12th, authorities said. The alert was discontinued June 14th as research crews found him dead in a wooded area near his neighborhood. So yeah, they quote, as with all investigations into unnatural deaths, every possibility is considered by detectives. So far, the investigation has not revealed any signs of foul play. He was born August 27th, 1937 in Brazoria, Texas, and received his bachelor's degree from the University of Texas in 1959 before enlisting in the U.S. Marine Corps. Stockwell spent years with the CIA and served as chief of the agency's Angola Task Force during the mid-1970s, according to the New York Times. After leaving the agency in 1977, he publicly criticized covert U.S. operations and wrote In Search of Enemies, a book detailing his experiences with the CIA. After leaving the CIA, Stockwell returned to Austin to write. He published the novel Red Sunset in 1982 and a collection of essays titled The Praetorian Guard, the U.S. Role in the New World Order in 1991. Yeah, didn't know he was here. That's wild. Meanwhile, over at ratical.org, that's ratical.org, there's a new version of Understanding Special Operations, Their Impact on the Vietnam War Era and Beyond, which is a 1989 interview with L. Fletcher Prouty, Colonel, U.S. Air Force, retired, produced by David Ratcliffe, thus Ratical, ratical.org, and his Rat House Reality Press, Roslindale, Massachusetts. Yeah, so there is an HTML and a PDF version, and also, I guess, the original recordings of those interviews. So this is a treasure trove of material on covert operations, as revealed by Fletcher Prouty, long revered whistleblower of sorts. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I guess that might actually wrap it up. There's still a ton of other links that I'm going to include in the show notes for today that we're not going to get to. Tons of stuff. Oh, did y'all hear about this spooky discovery on mysterious Mount Shasta after horseback riders follow quote unquote apocalyptic sounds summoning something? Well, yeah, I did want to play this. I've got this video here. Yeah, here we go. This is about 2 minutes and 10 seconds from Local 12 News.
Where is that coming from? This is straight apocalyptic.
What started as a horseback ride near Highway 97 just northeast of Weed turned into an internet mystery. Mount Shasta resident Carrie Ann Schnur discovered about 200 solar-powered speakers hidden across a hillside on private property near public land.
This is so Mount Shasta.
After her videos went viral, Schnur used her local connections to track down the property owner.
His purpose was for elevating consciousness, like trying to affect the universe, you know, with his positive messages. Yeah, he's just very passionate about veganism and world peace, and some people believe that kind of thing works. And to a certain degree, I actually do too, but I think it needs to come from a human, energetic place. I don't think digital devices really tap into that
Schnurr says the owner also asked her not to reveal his identity or the exact location of the speakers. Somewhere beyond these hills is where Carrie Ann Schnurr says she stumbled across the 200 solar-powered speakers. But as the story spread online, so did the speculations. Some social media users claimed that speakers were part of a government program or that Schnurr had been paid to stay quiet, claims she says are completely false.
So it wasn't just my accounts that I had posted them on, it was everybody else screen grabbing and downloading and reposting, and then the misinformation that happened was insane. Thousands of speakers, they're in danger for their lives. I'm like, please.
Together, the hundreds of speakers blend into what sounds like white noise, but up close, Schnurr says each one plays a separate message about peace, compassion, or veganism.
Obey and love God Almighty, the Most High.
Yeah, if you've heard the original clip, it's pretty weird and eerie and straight apocalyptic. And it does not surprise me that somebody on or near Mount Shasta would be so inclined to do something strange like that. It also just seems like a very weird and interesting art installation to me. But well, what else we got? Just some there's some great mad science news. Deep inside the Earth's molten core, a sudden reversal now has scientists searching for answers over at thedebrief.org. Daily Grail writers, I think Miguel Romero writes about this video of the Japanese kid who showed butterflies retain their caterpillar memories. I remember hearing about this. That's really cool. And this news headlines from the New York Times: this cell feeds, grows, and reproduces, and it's man-made. And meanwhile, there's a full interview titled "How This Central Texas Company Became the First to Land on the Moon." So we've got commercial people, commercial company, corporate interests have now landed on the moon, not just quote unquote representatives of nation states. And then there's this other one from USA Today. Scientists mull controversial plan to steer hurricanes. Yes, weather modification. It's not science fiction, folks. There may be disagreement over whether it actually works, but the military has certainly used it in certain ways, just through classic cloud seeding, to use the weather to their advantage. But man, here's some great news. For those of you who've been following us a long time, you may remember back in 2020, at the end of 2020, because of lockdowns, we were doing an emergency fundraiser where we did 8+ hours of live streaming lectures and programming every Saturday for 6 Saturdays. For 6 weeks in a row, we did 8 to 10 hours of programming. So about 60 hours of programming over the course of 6 weeks at the end of 2020. And one of those featured a screening of the film The Hill and the Hole, a surveyor discovers an impossible mystery, by Bill Darman and Chris Ernst. And we had Bill and Chris and Adam Gorightly, who's in The Hill and the Hole, along with Tim Banal and Lauren Coleman, all make appearances in this film. They have now made it available online for free. And I just think that is so cool. You should go and check it out. If you haven't, if you haven't seen the movie, you can now watch it for free on YouTube, and it is so cool. I really, where is it? Okay. Yeah. So it's titled a surveyor discovers an impossible mystery, The Hill and the Hole fantasy. Anyway, you should go check it out. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right, that's it, folks. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Anomaly Now. We do, like I mentioned, have coming up. Where is it? Coming up, we've got this presentation by Barbara Fisher. That's going to be Wednesday, July 29th, called Living with Living Lights. This is about her experience with UFOs and ideas about the nature of this phenomena. And it's going to be great. You should check it out. Well, that's going to do for now. Thank you. Goodbye.